When you start a numeracy class, sometimes your learners are coming in from maybe doing literacy or doing a different subject. So sometimes it's good to have some kind of an icebreaker, anything that kind of gets them thinking of numbers. So there was a great exercise in the case studies about putting numbers up on a whiteboard, random numbers between 0 and 100. And I mean, you could go to higher if you wanted. And people had to come up to the board and order them, so just to get them thinking numbers. And I mean, you could put in decimals there as well. You could put money in there if they're not sure of decimals.
There is so much now about making maths real and using a real context or matching the topic with a real context. But you have to be so careful, because if you don't make that meaningful for your students, it'll only add a further layer of learning, understanding, confusion. I think about my students, my particular students. I ask them maybe to offer examples. And even better, I capture teachable moments. And teachable moments are like, for example, when my students were doing a class on ratio and rates. I talked about currencies, and one of my students put up his hand and he said, "Antoinette, is that like selling my pigs?" And I said, "Selling pigs, explain." And he said, "When I sell my pedigree pigs, they quote the price in guineas. And then you have to think in your head, what's that in euros?" And that provided a real context for the students. It really opened up their learning.
We're very lucky in the centre that I work in, and that we have a lot of hands-on material to supplement the maths that we're doing. So I try and have at least one hands-on activity in every class, depending on what we're doing. There's a great company in England, Access Publications, and they have a hands-on section for material, kind of multi-sensory material, and we will get a lot of our maths resources. So it could be like, if they were doing fractions, matching a picture of a fraction part shaded with the actual fraction. And it's a great way for the tutor to assess, has the learning happened? If they've been teaching fractions, has the learning happened by maybe reinforcing with an activity? Something I've been doing this year as well is asking the learners to come up to the board, to the whiteboard. I was doing algebra with a group and they were having difficulties. So I asked them to come up to the board and have a go in pairs. So they were kind of, the onus wasn't on one person, they could solve it between them. But again, because it was a whiteboard, they could rub it out if they weren't too sure and have another go. And I don't know what it was, but something about getting up off the chairs and up to the boards, it just seemed to help, with the thinking. So I suppose, group work and pair work is a great, anything that would encourage that hands-on material, if you can, and then movement or some kind of activity where they're maybe moving from the chairs or switching around. As well as the worksheet material and things that you have to produce for QQI accreditation.